Hello everyone, what's going on? I'm Gareth, the Master974, back again today, and welcome to another Valve source code tutorial follow-up video. And today I'm going to be following up on the animated background menu video that I did earlier on in 2025 by basically improving this feature quite substantially. Now I do need to give a thank you to funnyman.exe for essentially providing a different sort of methodology for adding animated background menus in the form of a script, for example by placing a file called background maps.txt in your mods scripts folder instead of hard coding the backgrounds, videos, songs and volumes within the code. They also suggested a way to get this to work in Source 2013 multiplayer mods, but the thing is it only affects the Team Fortress 2 code, not the Half-Life 2 deathmatch code, and it has its fair share of problems. And it also doesn't help that I actually lost the guide that they sent to me, so unless they send it to me again or leave it in the comments, then it's not something that I'm going to be talking about. But it has issues and it's just not going to be worth doing in my opinion. Anyway, I've screwed up with this intro enough, so I'm just going to get into what you want to do to actually improve this feature. And to this I do need to give a massive thank you to our boy Waddles for reaching out to me and providing a guide pretty much telling me how to make this better by including some new files and improving the functionality, kind of like what Funnyman suggested, by actually having stuff like the background videos, the songs and the volumes and that play through a script file. So let's go into what you want to do. Of course, I am assuming you've already followed the original tutorial in every single way, because I'm not going to go over stuff that I've already talked about in that video. So yeah, you just want to follow that first and then watch this video from here on. So anyway, the first thing you want to do is go to the Dropbox link that's going to be provided in the comments and probably the description. Or you can go to my GitHub page when I get around to updating that after this video goes live, or maybe early 2026, we'll see. But there's going to be BIC background and mod info files here, so you want to acquire those and add them to the src game client folder, and you also want to add them to the client project. And if you've actually followed the original guide, you should have menu background.h and menu background.cpp files in your client project. You want to go ahead and remove those because we're not going to be using them. Then you want to go to base viewport.h and you want to add void delete BIC menu and void initialize BIC menu, passing through an input of a bool b play which equals true. And at the bottom of the file you want to replace cmain menu with mod base underscore BIC menu, as you'll see in the video. And then you want to go to base viewport.cpp and you want to replace hashtag include of menu background.h with hashtag include of BIC background.h. And then you want to go to the on-screen size changed function, and if this does not already exist, beneath the if bspec GUI was visible if statement, you want to add if m_p main menu panel, then m_p main menu panel arrow m_b init equals false, and m_p main menu panel arrow apply scheme settings of null. Then at the end of the start function, you want to remove the existing m_p main menu panel stuff, and you want to add delete BIC menu and initialize BIC menu. And then finally, after the get def message start height function, you want to replace the start main menu video and stop main menu video functions with these instead. So you want to have void cbase viewport : start main menu video. And in this function, you want to say if m_p main menu panel and gp mod base BIC background be used. There's a lot of underscores in there, so I'm not going to say them all. But in that if statement, you want to add m_p main menu panel arrow start video. And you can add BIC background debug message of starting main menu video \n if you want to. And then in void cbase viewport : stop main menu video, you want to have if m_p main menu panel and gp mod base BIC background be used, then m_p main menu panel arrow stop video. And you also want to add void cbase viewport : delete BIC menu. And in this function, you want to say if m_p main menu panel, then delete m_p main menu panel, and then m_p main menu panel equals null. And then void cbase viewport : initialize BIC menu, passing through an input of bool b play. And in this function, you want to say if gp mod base BIC background be used, then m_p main menu panel equals new mod base BIC menu passing through inputs of null, null. Then m_p main menu panel arrow set visible of false. And if bplay, then m_p main menu panel arrow start video. After this, you want to go to cdll client int.cpp, and at the top of the file with the hashtag include stuff, you want to add hashtag include of bicbackground.h. Then after the extern iGameSystem * viewport client system line, you pretty much want to copy paste the code that will be left in the attached guide. There's quite a bit, but what it does is it defines the modbase init background and modbase delete background functions, which is going to be used to find the script file that you can use to actually add animated backgrounds and background songs and stuff like that. Then after this, you want to find the chl client : init function, and above the mode manager arrow init line, you want to add modbase init background. And then in the chl client : post init function, you want to remove the swap disconnect command and engine arrow cmd lines that already exist. But after the hashtag ifdef hl1mp client dll if statement, you want to add this. So you want to add if gp modbase bic background be used, then swap disconnect command, and if command line with brackets after is arrow check palm of, and then in speech marks plus map is exactly equal to null, then engine arrow client cmd of, and then inside the speech marks disconnect, as you'll see in the video. And finally, inside of chl client : shutdown, underneath the iGameSystem : shutdown all systems line, you want to add modbase delete background. So what I've outlined so far should be enough if you don't care about the Gamepad UI. So you can pretty much compile the code, launch into a mod for testing, and supposing you have a script, which I'll get to towards the end of the video, then you can pretty much mess around with this feature, mess around with the SV unlocked chapters convar value, or it can be based off of randomness or the map that you choose to disconnect from, but you can pretty much mess around and see how the background videos play and change. And something that was a bit of an issue that I didn't talk about in the original video was that by actually disconnecting from a single player game, the background menu didn't play properly. But with this better functionality from Waddles, that issue has been fixed. So yeah, you can mess around with this to your heart's content, and hopefully it works. But this next little bit that I'm going to get to is if you do want to have the Gamepad UI, at least in some way, shape or form. So let's continue. So again, inside of cdll client int.cpp, just before the const-ball is Steam Deck function, you want to add the following function. So you want to create a void hide main menu logo recursive passing through an input of a VGUI : v panel called root panel. And in this function, you want to create a for loop from int I equals 0, I less than VGUI : I panel with brackets after it arrow get child count of root panel, then I++. And then in this for loop, you want to create an int called child, which equals VGUI : I panel with brackets after it arrow get child of root panel, then I. Create a const char asterisk called panel name, which equals VGUI : I panel with brackets after it arrow get name of child. And then if !q_strcmp of panel name, then in speech marks game menu button, or !q_strcmp of panel name, and then in speech marks game menu button 2, then you want to say VGUI : panel asterisk logo equals VGUI : I panel with brackets after it arrow get panel of child, and then speech marks game UI with capital G, capital U, capital I. And then if logo arrow set visible of false. Outside the if statement, but still in the for loop, hide main menu logo recursive of child, as you'll see in the video. Then you want to go to the chl client : post init function, and inside of the if is Steam Deck if statement, below the g_p Gamepad UI arrow initialize line, you want to add hide main menu logo recursive of engine VGUI arrow get panel of VGUI panel _t : panel game UI DLL, as you'll see in the video, and add gp modbase b is Gamepad UI equals true. And additionally, with the if GP mod base big background be used if statement, as I said earlier, you want to actually append that to add double ampersand, which means and, exclamation mark GP mod base B is Gamepad UI. Next, you want to go to the HUD update function, and below the if GP Gamepad UI does not equal null if statement, you want to add if GP mod base B is Gamepad UI, then create a static int called I times which equals 0, then if I times is lower than 2 then I times plus plus, else if I times is exactly equal to 2, then if exclamation mark engine arrow is connected and command line with brackets after it arrow check palm of inside the speech marks plus map is exactly equal to null and GP mod base big background be used, then swap disconnect command, then engine arrow client CMD of inside the speech marks disconnect, and outside of that if statement I times plus plus as you'll see in the video. And the reasoning for this is because of launching into the debug version of the code with the Gamepad UI active may actually cause some problems, so it's just a bit of a failsafe. And finally, inside of the CHL client : level init post entity function, below the if GP Gamepad UI does not equal null if statement, you want to add the following. So you want to create a static ball called bdid which equals false, and then if exclamation mark bdid and GP mod base B is Gamepad UI and GP mod base big background be use, then swap disconnect command, then if command line with brackets after it arrow check palm of inside the speech marks plus map is exactly equal to null and engine arrow is level main menu background, then engine arrow client CMD of inside the speech marks disconnect as you'll see in the video, then bdid equals true. That's outside of the if exclamation mark bdid if statement. The reasoning for this is if the mod has a spinning logo in the top right corner of the screen, you can have issues. So this is just, again, another sort of fail-safe that you might want to add. Lastly, you want to go back to base viewport.cpp, and inside of the start function, you want to change the initialize big menu section to be like this instead. So above the line, you want to add extern const ball is Steam Deck with brackets after it, and then initialize big menu of exclamation mark is Steam Deck. Okay, so that's all of the code changes. With that, you can save, compile the code, launch into your mod, either with the Gamepad UI or without the Gamepad UI being enabled. But what you should see is if you do have the Gamepad UI enabled, you should no longer get the Game UI menu text displaying, which was a bit of an issue with the Gamepad UI tutorial that I did. I did kind of come up with a hacky way that you can stop that from happening, but with this code that Waddle's provided, this should no longer happen, so you don't have to worry about that hacky fix. But yeah, you can load into maps, mess around with the SV unlocked chapters convar, disconnect, use the mod base background reset con command I think it is, and see how the background menus change and how the songs that play in the background change and all that. But what I'm going to get to now is this script, because this is actually the way that you'd want to go about adding these animated background menus into your mod now. So the way this feature works in its current state is that it's based off of a script file that needs to be placed inside of your mod's modbase config folder, and the file needs to be called backgroundmenu.txt. So you want to go to the modbase init background function, and inside of that function you should see a path towards the modbase config folder, but you can just simply change that to scripts instead if you want to. So this is probably what I'll do when I get around to adding this code to my GitHub relatively soon. And I'll provide this file as well so you can take a look at it. There's some commentary by Waddles about how it should be used. But some key things is you have the opportunity to specify if the mod should even use animated background menus in the first place, and if so, what the background load type should be. So you have the options of using a convar, for example SV unlocked chapters, but you can use any convar you want to, whether it should be random, fully random, or compare previous map. And inside of menu data sections, you need to specify what videos, which sounds could potentially play, but also other parameters like min value if use convar is the load type, or map criteria if compare previous map is the load type, which can include wildcard searches like D1 _ to make it so if the map has D1, in the title of it, then you can pretty much make that background video play for that section. But then if it's D2_*, then if you disconnect from a map that starts with D2_, then the different video plays. So yeah, Waddles has also left some pretty comprehensive notes about that. I'm not going to get into it here, it's a bit complex, but you can mess around with this to your heart's content. And one other thing you can do is use a logo instead of text if you want to do that. But anyway, with the options being set, you can pretty much load into your mod, see the animated background menu, try loading into and disconnecting from various maps to see how the background menu changes, either based off of randomness, the SV unlocked chapters convar value, or even the map name. So there's a lot to mess around with there, and I'll leave it up to you to experiment around with it, and hopefully this is good enough for you, and all of the features that you could ever want are here, and the moddability of it and customization of it is relatively easy to handle. But with all that being said and done, I'm going to be rounding off this follow-up video, and I'll try to get it out before the end of 2025, otherwise it's going to be uploaded the beginning of 2026, but sorry it took so long to get all these follow-up videos done, and to be honest, I'm thinking of doing one more Source Shorts video before getting the GitHub page updated, but we'll see. But with all that being said and done, that's all I have to say for this video. Take care out there, peace out, see you later, and please check out one of my other videos if you have the chance to. Take care out there guys, and have a happy new year.